Hello everybody, we're here at Steve Langley's fish room. Here's Steve, good to meet you, Steve.
Hi, how are you doing?
And he's going to show us around his fish room here. He's big into the angels and the rams, and y'all might learn something about breeding angels here, so stay tuned.
So we got our first tank here. I picked up some gumbo ear guppies from the Big Alice local place. Trying a little experiment. I got some endler cross females that I put in with these Dumbo ears. So we'll see if we can get some endler Dumbo ear.
That'll be neat. What kind of plant do you have in here, Steve? That's great.
That's water wisteria. Seems to be growing quite nicely.
I'd say.
It's also creeping along the back is really interesting.
Back so down in there, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of creeping along, and then it's going to start shooting out more towers, basically, like this one over here. You can see it's kind of shot off from the main plant, and I've got 2 or 3 that are starting to shoot up now.
Fantastic.
That one got a little bit of hair algae, so I had to cut it back. And it'll also grow floating, so I just left the tops up at the top there, and they'll start rooting. They'll shoot roots out just like a water lettuce.
Okay. And are these fry from these Dumbo ears?
So
over here?
what I've been doing is taking the babies that I don't want and just kind of transferring them over into this tank here, and then this is. Eventually I'll just call these and get rid of them.
Very good, very good.
I won't call them, I'll just sell them to somebody.
I'm going to move down to the middle of Steve's rock, and in a bit we'll do a full panoramic view, but I'm sure you all want to see these, and we'll let Steve explain these better to you.
So these are one of my many pairs of angel breeding pairs. Those are babies that I raised up from last year, so they've been spawning for probably a couple of weeks now. I get eggs off of them every week, more or less. It looks like they're almost ready to spawn again.
And that's just a big tub of Java moss back there?
That's a large tub of Java moss. It actually filled the entire tank, and I split it up, and I've put it into a couple of different tanks now, but it just kind of keeps on growing.
And when you're breeding these, you're just using this piece of slate for them to lay their eggs on?
Yeah, I got that slate from you. You cut that up for me. It's a great little utility just for laying eggs, because they lay their eggs vertically.
So for anybody at home that wants to start breeding angels, it's literally just a piece of slate rock cut 3 inches by, I believe those ones are 12 inches, leaned up against the glass. Pretty simple.
Yeah, you can buy like the breeding cones and stuff from the pet stores, but it's not really necessary. You can use a piece of slate or a piece of rock, or they'll even lay eggs right on a sword plant.
Here's the next 20-gallon long or tall that's got looks like a breeding pair of koi angels in it.
Well, you would think it was be koi, but they actually came from a black marble pair, and the male there has a lot of orange on it, which is why I kept it, because I want to try and get more orange into my angels as I breed them.
Have you been successful with these guys?
Oh yeah, they came from the same batch as the other ones. They're doing exactly the same thing. I had 12 of them that I raised up together, and one pair formed, which I removed, and then within a week the other 10 paired up into one. So I have like 6 pairs going on.
Oh my lord. Skipped over one tank for a minute just to show you this 75-gallon planted tank, which looks amazing, and we'll let Steve tell you a little bit more about it.
So the display tank is more just for my personal enjoyment. I have this male that you're looking at here. He's a retired breeder. He's just really gentle and big, and he's blind in one eye, so he's kind of just having a wonderful life in this tank. I'm not going to breed him anymore. He's just going to enjoy his time.
Enjoy his golden years.
So I have a couple of other angels in here. This is a koi female that I have, and she's actually paired up with a blue platinum, which is kind of hiding at the back of the tank right now.
There he's coming out for us.
So they've been spawning in this community tank probably every 2 to 3 weeks. And I've taken out a couple of the spawns. They normally lay their eggs on this giant sword plant here. And I just clipped out a couple of leaves as they spawned and hatched the eggs outside of the tank.
Very good. Very good.
And we got a mixture of tetras. I got some black phantom tetras and some emperor tetras. And I got a couple of really old Colombian tetras. This blue and red one here. And they're about 5 years old now, so I only have 2 of them left. I had 6 and they've just been dying off from old age the last 6 months or so.
Well, their tank looks extremely healthy. Extremely healthy. And you have CO2 in this tank, Steve?
I do, yeah. So it's actually run off of a soda stream bottle, which you can see down on the bottom there.
Fantastic. Is this a little rig up you did yourself?
Well, it's just a regular CO2 regulator. I got an adapter off of eBay that you can hook up a soda stream bottle to. And it lasts about 6 weeks in this 75-gallon tank.
The thing you guys might not have seen with the pan view was this grass here. Steve was going to try and get it to go right across the tank, and that will look absolutely amazing because it looks great where it is.
I started this off a year ago, and I had maybe 4 individual plants in there.
Wow.
And it is just completely taken off, and I'm hoping that it'll give a nice little bed for the tetras to spawn in, and maybe I can salvage a couple of the fry over time. So these are all the offspring from the gold and blue platinum that we looked at just a second ago. This is the first batch. It's an interesting set of coloration going on in there. There's kind of olive green body, and then some of them have red on their fins, some of them have kind of a bluish purple color on their fins. So I'm kind of interested to see what's going to happen as they get larger and mature and bring in more of their colors.
Now these ones, Steve, they look like they go from about a 1/2 inch to like 1.5 inches or so. How long does it take to get angels from egg to this size?
So these are about a month old now.
So they grow fairly quickly up
They
to
do,
this
yeah.
size.
And the more space you can give them, the faster they'll grow. And you'll see that in a few minutes when we go out to the other tank, because I took 12 of the best fish out of this tank for raising up for spawning later, and they're even bigger than these ones.
Fantastic.
So the more space and the fresher the water that you can keep them in, the faster they'll grow.
So what's your water change schedule like for this tank where you're raising babies up?
This one I will do 60 to 70% every week.
Okay, so that's a fair amount of water, a fair amount of labor, but it looks like it's paying off for you.
Yeah, my goal is to get them onto an auto drip system so that I don't have to worry as much on a weekly basis.
And I see we have a tank with an auto drip here, so we can show you that in a few minutes too. But very cool looking little angels. We moved down below the row of 20-gallon longs, and now here is Steve's 55-gallon koi angel tank with a couple of pieces of slate in it, and these are gorgeous looking kois. And I'll let Steve tell you about them.
So I got these about a year ago, just little quarter-sized fish. They were not in the greatest of health, but managed to get them turned around, and now they've approached the size of breeding. They haven't seen a lot of breeding, like spawning, pairing action going on, but I did notice about 2 weeks ago that I had one pair that was laying some eggs. So I have a couple of tanks that are empty now, and I'm going to split off that pair, and this will be my next line of angels that will be spawning and keeping fry for.
Very good. So if you're in the Barrie area, this is likely where you're going to get angelfish from if you're around here, and it's not a bad place to get angels, because I can tell you every tank I've seen here is pristine looking. Excellent water quality. Back up on the top rock, and here's another breeding pair of Steve's angels.
So this is pair number 3 that came out of the 12 that I had from last year's spawn. Again, they're doing the same thing. They lay eggs every week to 2 weeks. I keep a batch every now and then just because I don't have a lot of tank space, but I do have a couple openings coming up, so I'll start keeping more of their spawns. This pair I'm actually going to keep. The other ones probably will sell off or donate to somebody, just because I want to have multiple lines of angels, so I need the space.
Well, it looks like they're definitely a bonded pair. They haven't left each other's side since we started videoing.
Yeah, they're really good parents as well. Like the last spawn that they had, I didn't even have to remove the fry, the eggs. They just looked after them, and then I just netted them out.
One thing I did notice on this, I believe that's the male, eh, Steve?
Yeah.
Look how long the trailers are on his front fins there.
Yeah, it's really hard to find like that in pet stores and things, because they're really susceptible to like fin rot, and with those ones in particular, once they've gotten fin rot or damage, they will not regrow, and they won't straighten out. So if you get a ray that's damaged and it gets kinked and then it heals, it will be kinked for the rest of the fish's life.
Here's the top rack on the back of Steve's fish room, and I'll let Steve tell you about this tank.
So this is what I have left over from my ram breeding project. It was a black knight rams that I had, and they're really interesting to breed, and they're just a lot of work to get the fry actually to a survivable size. They're so tiny when they're born. You have to have really microfine foods to feed them, and they don't really go after powdered food very well. So you're looking at things like microworms or vinegar eels or that sort of thing. I just found them to be a lot of work.
That guy's just stunning right there.
I do have a couple of black ones that you'll see in a little bit that I'm hoping that I can get to a breeding size and continue breeding the black ones. But the fish that I got from pet store are not a pure line, so that's why you're seeing a mix of the standard coloration and the black coloration. So my goal was to kind of solidify that black coloration so that the spawns are more complete in terms of color instead of such a mix like this.
Back down to the middle rack on the back side, and here's just some more angels growing out. Another beautifully planted tank that I'll let Steve tell you about.
So this one is got a bunch of angels that they're probably about 3 to 6 months old now. These ones are ready for sale. I have sold a number of them. Just waiting for the rest of them to go. These are all pure black marbles. And once I got rid of those, then I'll be moving in the babies from the spawns that I've had more recently.
These are fair size for 6 months old. Like, these are bigger fish than you see at most pet shops. And what I'll do is, if you're interested in buying some angels, maybe I'll put some of Steve's contact information in the comments below, and you can get a hold of Steve and get some of his beautiful and healthy angels for yourself. So these are angels on the bottom rack.
Yeah. So these came from the same set of 12 that I had, minus the 2 kois that are in here. But the other 4 are actually part of the 12, and you can see that there's one pair that has actually laid eggs up on the back glass there, and they're busy protecting them from the other 2, or the other 4.
And a crib.
And a crib. A crib that was left over that was supposed to go to Jesse, but kind of evaded the net and I didn't notice.
So there you go. They just breed on their own.
Yeah. So if you don't give them a piece of slate or anything, they'll pick anything that's vertical. So they were spawning on the overflow, but now they've moved off into the other corner to spawn on the glass. And I think it's because this koi pair here is paired off, and they're using the pipe now. The koi pair here, I'm going to actually be moving into their own spawning tank. These ones came from another pet store that I got them last year, and they got some really long fins, but they're kind of damaged up and stuff. But
those got extremely long fins.
Their genetics are fairly good, so I'll give them some chances to spawn and take some of the babies and see what I can do with the fins and get them straightened out, that sort of thing.
Do you want to explain this overflow system?
So this back rack that we've been looking at here is eventually going to be my fry rearing rack. So my plan is to have everything put on an auto drip. And so my first step was to put together a bit of a prototype to see if I could do it reliably. So this has been running since the beginning of summer and I haven't had any trouble, so now is the time that I'm going to do the other 2 tanks on this rack.
So it's got a freshwater drip constant into the tank, and this overflow goes right into his sump pit here, so no worries with any mess there. And that's a pretty great idea to have fresh water into your tank constantly.
Yeah, so it's really important for fry when they're growing out to have as best water quality as you can have. So to have it constantly changing water will prove to be really good for them and should increase their growth rates. Alright, so this is a tank that's actually just outside the fish room. The babies that you see here are part of the spawn from the koi and the blue platinum. And because I've taken out, a dozen here and I've put them in a 30-gallon tank by themselves, you can see that they've grown way faster.
Twice the size.
Way faster than the other ones, right? So I took a few of them out just so that I can get them to grow a little bit faster, so that I can see what's going to happen with the coloration, because the coloration to me is really interesting on these fish.
Oh, there we go. That focused in nice.
There's a lot of
red,
like, almost to like an olive green colored body, which I don't think I've ever seen on any angelfish before. And then some of them have this kind of a bluey purple dorsal fin, which is very interesting.
This one's got a very purpley one if he'll turn sideways. Actually, the guy above does too. They all do. Look at that. It's definitely different.
So, kind of interested to see what's going to happen with these ones. Maybe able to bring along some new strain of some kind.
Yeah, most definitely. I've never seen angelfish that look like this. And this is where you find angelfish that look different, where you find all kinds of fish that look different. Not generally in a pet shop or an aquarium shop. It's generally in somebody's basement. And these fish have gotten care like no other fish get when they're in a basement. They get individual care, and these are the results when you do individual care and breeding. You get great looking fish, especially when you start with great genetics. Back in the fish room, and here's just another angelfish holding tank it looks like, but I'll
Yeah.
let Steve explain them to you.
So these came from a different pair. I'm just raising up so that I can have some additional genetics in the fish room. There's a couple of solid silvers in here, which is kind of interesting because the parents were both marbles. So I'm not sure where that's coming from. But what makes it interesting is the finish on the silvers are kind of a blackish red color, which is I've not seen anything like that before either. But these came from a pair that was upstairs in my office, and they were looking after them for a month or two, and I eventually had to take them out because they were attacking the parents. Not the parents attacking them, but the babies attacking. So here we got a 30-gallon tank, which is kind of acting as a grow-out tank for another generation. I have this amazing solid koi long fin, waiting for it to pair up with one of these black ones that I have in the tank with it.
That its trailers are so long, they're dragging on the rock down
Yeah.
there almost.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if it's a male or a female at this point. It hasn't shown any signs of pairing or breeding behavior as of yet. I got 5 dark angels in there with it, so hopefully I'll get a pair at least out of 1 or 2 of them. And then also in here I have some those plecos that I got from Jesse, and also some Dark Knight Rams, if you can get them to focus quite nicely on there, I don't know.
Got one guy going sideways there, we can get in on him.
Yeah, so these ones I'm waiting to mature a little bit more so that I can start breeding them. I have 2 females and 2 males in this tank, and hopefully I'll get a pair out of them. I really like the females in this tank because they're so speckled with the light blue.
They are.
Hoping I can bring some of that into the males as well. And then we got here some green tiger endlers. These are a pure strain, so they've been breeding green tigers forever. Mixed in with a couple of rams that I didn't have anywhere else to put at the time, so this is where they ended up. They seem to be keeping the population of endlers in check. Not too overpopulated anymore.
Looks like a healthy balance. Well, there's a bigger ram down in there. The rams are real sly in here. They hide really well.
Yeah, it's a really densely planted tank. The jungle val just seems to be taking over everywhere.
It does, but it looks great. Looks great. There's a ton of endlers, and I'm pretty sure if people talk to you, you'd be willing to give up a few endlers too.
Yep, I've cleaned out the population a few times over the last year and a half. Take it down to like 3 or 4 different pairs left over, and then they go crazy for a few months, and then you have a few hundred more.
So this is the top rack at the side here with the 2 30 gallons and another, I believe that's a 30 on the end on its side with the angels.
Yeah.
And then we have a lower rack, and here's a fish I have as well, but I have not been nearly as successful as Steve with them. His colony looks great, and I'll let him tell you about them.
These are the Mica splendens. They are on the CARES priority list, which means they are an endangered species in the wild. I got these at an auction in March of this year, and I started off with a pair. Well, the trio actually, the 1 male and 2 females. And then I got a couple more from a friend at the fish club. And since then I've had a batch of 9 babies. They are a live bear, but they're not as prolific as other live bears like guppies. So they only have, maybe 6 to 12 babies at a time. But it's not like a guppy where you have 30 or 40 babies every month. these take 3 to 4 months before they actually have another drop of fry. So I've only had the one drop of fry so far, but you'll
Guessing
see.
that female there's going to be dropping fry soon.
So yeah, they're just starting to plump back up. So I'm expecting that I'll have probably another 10 or so in the next month, maybe month and a half. We have another tank with the Caris species. These are nanolutes. They're just getting to the size where they're going to start pairing off and spawning. I love the coloration of these fish. There's so many colors. The camera just doesn't do them justice at all. Like you can see a lot of yellow in the camera, but then if you look really closely, there's undertones of blue and green and purple and
Red.
yeah. They're even orange in spots on their fins.
Now, what makes these guys special, other than being on the CARES list? I see you have like 6 of them in a 25-gallon tank. Obviously, they're not too aggressive to each other.
They're not doing too badly. They are a little bit crowded for pairing purposes. So once I have my koi angels over here separated out and spawning, these guys are going to move into the 55-gallon so that they'll have a lot more space.
Special requirements for these guys, Steve?
No, not really. They're similar to a convict cichlid, but they're not as prolific spawners as the convicts. They get about 5 inches in length maximum for the males, and the females are like 3 to 4 inches.
Not something you see every day.
No, you won't find these in any of the pet stores, which is really a shame because they're such an amazing colored fish.
And in the back corner of Steve's fish room, there's a whole bunch more little babies. I mean, like, there's angelfish everywhere around here. There's babies here. There's babies inside that jug.
This is my breeding corner, so it's not really that pretty to look at. But
believe it or not,
just
these are
have-
baby angels.
Those are 2 weeks old now, so they haven't even started to turn into angelfish yet. They're just still little sticks. Around the 3-week mark, they actually turn into the little triangle shape, and you can actually start to see the angel finnage starting to pop out. This is another spawn from the Koi Blue Platinum.
So what do you feed these guys at this size?
Everything gets baby brine shrimp, even the larger ones that we looked at before.
I can see his baby brine shrimp hatchery down there. Nice little compact setup. Looks like it works well.
It's a 2-gallon tank with a couple of water bottles cut in half and a little heater, and the lamp there stays on 24 hours a day.
I'd like to thank Steve for letting us tour his fish room, letting us all see his fish room. This is something that fish rooms are a very personal thing for people, and it's nice when someone will actually allow you to come in and see what they do in their basement with their fish. And from what I see, Steve's doing a great job. His fish look amazing, and thanks again, Steve, for letting me come and video it.
Yeah,
It's
thank
been a
you.
pleasure.
Yeah, anytime, just come on by and have a look.
And for everybody who may be interested in purchasing fish off Asian, I'll put some of Steve's information. I'll pin it to the top of the comments under this video. And if you're in the Barrie, Ontario area, you just might be able to pick yourself up some beautiful angels. Thanks again, Steve.
All right, thanks a lot, Justin.